You didn't just watch a royal statement. You watched a system reach its absolute breaking point. A king and his heir standing side by side, finally admitting that the woman who was supposed to be the bridge between the old world and the new has pushed the crown too far.
Meghan Markle
For
is
months,
sharing rare details
the rumors
about her love
swirled
story.
in the dark alleys of Paris fashion and the high-stakes boardrooms of London. But tonight, the mask has finally dropped. The legal truth is far more dangerous than any headline you've seen on a supermarket tabloid. It began with a secret document leaked from an international branding agency, a pitch titled Project Her Grace. It wasn't just a mood board. It was a blueprint to monetize the ghost of Princess Diana.
The pair reached a formal agreement. Diana walked away from negotiations with a considerable settlement, $22.5 million in cash and $600,000 yearly payments, and her title as Princess of Wales. One of the biggest kicks, however, came to her royal status. The outlet noted that it was Charles who demanded Diana be stripped of the Royal Highness title, a moniker that set her apart as a royal. Queen Elizabeth II was said to have supported Diana keeping the designation, but Charles insisted she give it up. Once stripped of her HRH status, Diana was expected to curtsy to other royals, including her sons. However, the royal family made it clear that Diana would always be, quote, regarded as a member of the royal family, and from time to time, receive invitations to state and national public.
Legacy is not something you inherit to sell, as royal insiders have whispered. It is something you honor day by day, quietly and consistently. For Meghan, the attempt to rewrite the Diana narrative into a commercial contract became a collision course with a firewall she never saw coming. This is the story of how the crown finally closed the vault and why the Sussex brand just hit a wall of royal sovereignty that no amount of Hollywood spin can break. Inside the closed-door sessions at Clarence House, the mood was not one of anger, but of grim necessity. The monarchy has realized that in the influencer era, silence in a public institution is no longer an option. It's a vulnerability. By establishing the Windsor representation principles, the king has effectively signaled that royal identity is no longer available for reinterpretation by those operating on a freelance contract. Tonight, we walk through the missing months of silence, the failed Dior maneuver, and the moment the king said, "No more hiding." This isn't just about a brand. It's about who gets to own the story of the British monarchy. And as you're about to see, in the game of high-stakes couture and constitutional duty, structure always wins over spectacle. Behind the heavy gates of Kensington Palace and the private offices of Clarence House, the silence wasn't just a choice. It was a strategy that was slowly being dismantled by a series of catastrophic leaks. While the public was fed polished lines about privacy and recovery, a much darker narrative was being constructed in the boardrooms of international branding agencies. The catalyst for the Crown's surgical ban wasn't just a single event. It was the exposure of a document that royal insiders are now calling the architecture of betrayal, Project Her Grace. This leaked pitch, reportedly circulated among LVMH executives and top-tier PR firms in Paris, revealed a deeply calculated image play. It didn't just suggest a fashion collaboration. It proposed a complete reimagining of the Diana legacy with Meghan Markle as the sole protagonist. The document contained side-by-side visual comparisons, what experts call legacy juxtaposition, placing Meghan's humanitarian walks in Africa directly against Catherine's formal military parades and palace appearances. The tagline was as sharp as a blade: "Where tradition pauses, transformation begins." For King Charles III and Prince William, this was the moment the mask slipped. This wasn't transparency. It was truth dragged out at the last possible moment by a team trying to monetize a role they had already walked away from. The palace's internal review, spearheaded by the Lord Chamberlain's office, classified this maneuver as passive commercial impersonation. In the sharp, cold world of high-stakes monarchy, if you treat a title as a license for profit, you erase the very boundary that justifies your existence. The conflict behind closed doors was equally stark. Prince William reportedly faced a grueling choice between protecting his wife's peace during her recovery and responding to a PR machine that was using his mother's ghost to sell couture. The leaked subject line of a high-level internal email, "She deserves more than silence," exposed the deep rift between those who wanted to maintain royal dignity and those who realized that a fairy tale monarchy cannot survive in an era of predatory branding. When Dior finally broke its silence with a statement that acted as a final curtain, it wasn't just a rejection of a celebrity, it was an endorsement of institutional structure. The fashion world, led by Dior's creative director, chose the timeless icon over the temporary idol. They understood what Meghan's team had missed. In the game of power and perception, you don't keep canceling a future king's schedule for nothing, and you don't manufacture legends through controversy. Tonight, as we peel back the layers of this legal firewall, we see that the crown's ban is not just a punishment, it is a restoration of order. The monarchy has decided that it will no longer manage feelings, it will manage perception with an iron fist. As one fashion editor succinctly put it, Meghan walked in like a headliner, but the room chose the legacy. When you look at the footage from the Balenciaga runway show on December 1st, 2025, you aren't just seeing a fashion event, you are seeing a case study in social evaporation. Meghan Markle walked into that room flanked by a discreet digital team, her ivory-tailored coat structured to project power. But in the high-stakes world of European luxury, power isn't projected, it is recognized. Behind the camera flashes, the air was static. One fashion editor seated just rows away described the atmosphere as absent, not hostility, but a total refusal to engage. This is where the physiognomy of branding reveals the internal crisis. In our analysis of royal figures, we often look at the connection between external appearance and institutional alignment. For Meghan, the aesthetic has shifted from royal duty to perpetual auditioning. While she stood in Paris, surrounded by empty seats and frozen stares, her presence felt like a performance met with an audience that had already checked out. In fashion, as in Monarchy, being ignored is a fate far worse than being disliked. It signals that your brand equity has reached zero. The contrast provided by the Princess of Wales during this exact window was surgical. While Meghan was auditioning in Paris, Catherine was at Somerset House, delivering what experts call the death blow to freelance royalty. She didn't raise her voice, she simply clarified the law of the crown. When one holds a position tied to public duty, it is not
the
one's
pair reached a
name
formal
that
agreement.
the role.
Diana walked away from negotiations with a considerable settlement, $22.5 million in cash and $600,000 yearly payments, and her title as Princess of Wales. One of the biggest kicks, however, came to her royal status. The outlet noted that it was Charles who demanded Diana be stripped of the Royal Highness title, a moniker that set her apart as a royal. Queen Elizabeth II was said to have supported Diana keeping the designation, but Charles insisted she give it up. Once stripped of her HRH status, Diana was expected to curtsy to other royals, including her sons. However, the royal family made it clear that Diana would always be, quote, regarded as a member of the royal family, and from time to time received invitations to state and national public.
They saw the drama attached to the Sussex brand, and realized that in the world of haute couture, time always wins. Catherine brings timelessness, Meghan brings headlines, and as the global mood tracking data showed, consumers were no longer looking for spectacle. They were seeking alignment with values that endure. The crown's ban wasn't just about a name on a contract. It was about the legitimacy of presence. As a former LVMH consultant put it, you can buy the look, but you can't buy the legitimacy. The doors of Paris didn't just close. They were locked from the inside by an institution that refuses to bend to the influencer era. There is a line in the world of public perception that, once crossed, transforms a PR mistake into a moral catastrophe. While Meghan Markle's team was frantically attempting to salvage her image after the Dior rejection, they committed what many in the French media are calling the ultimate profanation. On a late-night drive through the heart of Paris, Meghan's camera crew was spotted filming B-roll content, not at a fashion landmark or a historic monument, but through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. For the uninitiated, this is the very site where Princess Diana's life ended in 1997. To the people of Paris and to the royal family, this isn't just a road, it is hallowed ground. The French newspaper Le Parisien didn't hold back, running the headline, L'héritage profané, legacy profaned. The analysis was chillingly consistent. It felt as though something sacred was being harvested for a marketing framework. This wasn't honoring Diana, it was using her tragedy as a backdrop for a digital comeback. This is the psychological tipping point, where brand equity turns into brand toxicity. In our analysis of Project Her Grace, we see a desperate need to inhabit a silhouette that was never a sign. As one Parisian stylist put it, Parisians can feel when something sacred is being used for a transaction, and that is where the elegance dies. This incident didn't just alienate the public, it sent a shockwave through the luxury sector. Brands like Valentino and Bottega Veneta immediately updated their internal PR policies, adding legacy risk clauses to their celebrity affiliation contracts. The contrast with Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has never been more structural. While Meghan was filming in the shadows of a tragedy, Catherine was in the UK, making a surprise visit to the Royal School of Embroidery. She wore a recycled coat from 2021, a subtle nod to heritage and sustainability. She didn't mention Diana, she didn't mention Paris, but by choosing a duty-based aesthetic over a spectacle-based one, she won the war of perception without speaking a word. This is the Catherine effect in its purest form, soft power style. Consumers, especially the high-net-worth demographic, aged 25 to 50, are increasingly drawn to figures who resist commodifying their identity. Catherine offers security and intention. Meghan offers an audition. And in the world of legacy branding, as the marketing data now shows, icons who look like they are auditioning are quickly discarded by houses that seek to endure for centuries. The legal truth behind the Crown's ban is now undeniable. King Charles III didn't just ban a person, he banned a behavioral model. By authorizing the Windsor representation principles, the monarchy has officially locked the vault. The contents of the royal legacy, the emotions, the tragedies, and the symbols are no longer available for reinterpretation or profit. As we move into the next phase of this fallout, the industry has sent a message louder than any campaign. Elegance doesn't chase, it chooses. By mid-December 2025, the British monarchy moved from passive observation to active containment. This wasn't a PR war fought with leaks and rumors. It was a legal consolidation of power. On December 4th, the court circular, the official record of the sovereign's activities, carried a notice that sent a clear signal to the world's luxury boardrooms. It was a formal clarification of royal title usage, stating that styles conferred by the sovereign are held in trust and cannot be used for commercial or representational gain without express authorization. This was the birth of the Windsor representation principles. In the world of constitutional law, this is what we call a representational firewall. It explicitly stated that no such authorization had been granted to the Duke or Duchess of Sussex. While the media focused on the ban, the real story was the demonetization of the brand. The Crown effectively locked the symbolic vault, ensuring that the Sussex name could no longer be traded as a premium currency in the influencer market. What many observers overlooked was the hand of the Princess of Wales in this strategic maneuvers. Catherine, leveraging her extensive training in law and governance from the University of St. Andrews, didn't just support the ban, she helped architect the moral argument behind it. During the Ethics and Leadership Forum, she defined the misrepresentation of royal roles for profit as something that cheapens history. This was an academic strike against Meghan's Project Her Grace, framing it not as a personal feud, but as an institutional necessity. The ripple effect across the branding landscape was instantaneous. Within 48 hours of the decree, major European fashion houses, including Valentino and Bottega Veneta, discreetly updated their influencer affiliation clauses. They added requirements for verifiable public duty alignment. The message was clear: if the palace won't vouch for you, neither will the heritage houses. This is where Meghan's strategy collided with the structural reality of high-end branding. Market data from Brand Trust Europe soon confirmed the shift.
The pair reached a formal agreement. Diana walked away from negotiations with a considerable settlement, $22.5 million in cash and $600,000 yearly payments, and her title as Princess of Wales. One of the biggest kicks, however, came to her royal status. The outlet noted that it was Charles who demanded Diana be stripped of the Royal Highness title, a moniker that set her apart as a royal. Queen Elizabeth II was said to have supported Diana keeping the designation, but Charles insisted she give it up. Once stripped of her HRH status, Diana was expected to curtsy to other royals, including her sons. However, the royal family made it clear that Diana would always be, quote, regarded as a member of the royal family, and from time to time receive invitations to state and national public.
Doesn't just win, it erases the competition. The legal truth is that the Crown didn't just close the door on Meghan. They removed the floor from beneath her brand. As the snow began to settle over Sandringham in mid-December 2025, the world witnessed the final, silent execution of a strategy that had been months in the making. This wasn't a shouting match. It was a masterclass in institutional control. While Meghan Markle's team was frantically trying to shop Project Her Grace to second-tier luxury houses, the Princess of Wales did something far more devastating. She simply spoke the truth of the role. On December 14th, Kensington Palace released a short, sunlit video message. It appeared to be about early childhood initiatives, but the final 30 seconds contained a surgical strike that effectively ended the Sussex brand's claim to royal legitimacy. Legacy, Catherine said with a calm that chilled PR war rooms from London to Los Angeles, is not something you inherit. It is something you honor day by day. She defined herself not as the center of the story, but as a link in a long chain. In that moment, she didn't just promote a charity. She redefined the boundary of the monarchy. She positioned the Crown as an entity of duty, directly contrasting it with Meghan's model of visibility. By stating that she was never the center, Catherine exposed the fundamental flaw in Meghan's Dior maneuver, the attempt to make the Crown a secondary character in a personal branding story. The reaction from the legacy industry was immediate and final. By Christmas morning, the Dior fallout had metastasized. Formal notices were sent from at least 2 major luxury houses, one French, one Italian, declining any further discussions with the Duchess of Sussex. These brands weren't just avoiding a person, they were avoiding a context. They realized that aligning with Meghan now meant violating the Windsor representation principles, a legal risk that no heritage house is willing to take for the sake of a few headlines. This is what we call the institutional erasure. When the palace locked the vault by amending the court circular and the official royal patronage websites, they didn't just ban Meghan from using a title. They removed her access to the visual and emotional capital of the monarchy. The disclaimer added to the royal seal was the final padlock. Only active members of the family may engage in work under the Crown's historic symbolism. For Meghan, who had built a narrative on being an alternative royal, the floor had completely disappeared. The data supports this institutional victory. Dior's internal marketing tracking showed a 30% increase in net positive sentiment in key markets like France and the UK, after they aligned with Catherine's silent tribute. This proves a massive global shift. Audiences are no longer looking for disruptors. They are looking for authenticity, shaped by humility. Catherine's silence became a brand asset, while Meghan's noise became a liability. In the world of high-stakes luxury, silence is the ultimate currency, and by mid-December 2025, that currency had completely run dry for Meghan Markle. The fallout from the Dior rejection and the Project Her Grace leak didn't just stay within the walls of the palace. It triggered a systemic withdrawal across the global fashion industry. This is what we call the brand contagion effect. When a high-profile figure is seen as PR toxic by a house as influential as Dior, the rest of the industry doesn't wait for an explanation. They simply move to protect their own equity. The evidence was visible in the quiet, almost invisible deletions. Niche fashion podcasts that had planned episodes on Meghan's style journey suddenly dropped their schedules. 2 major European brands pulled influencer collaborations that featured Meghan-adjacent content. Why? Because in the eyes of luxury executives, Meghan had ceased to be an asset and had become a headline risk. As one senior fashion director wrote in Business of Fashion, brands are no longer looking for attention. They are seeking alignment with values that endure. Catherine offers that. Meghan offers a publicity spiral. This leads us to the psychological distinction between wearing and being dressed. In the hierarchy of haute couture, anyone with a credit card can wear a brand, but only a few are chosen to be dressed by the house. When Meghan appeared at the Balenciaga show in a coat purchased through intermediaries, She signaled her own exclusion from the inner circle. She was a consumer, not an ambassador. This distinction is critical because it mirrors her status within the monarchy. She holds the title, but she no longer holds the key to the institution's legitimacy. The Catherine effect provided the structural alternative that brands were craving. While Meghan's aesthetic felt like a perpetual audition, Catherine's presence felt like institutional memory. Marketing data revealed a 23% boost in engagement for posts related to Catherine's public duties, specifically among the 25 to 40 age demographic. This audience isn't looking for disruption. They are looking for security and intention. They want icons who don't need to shout to be heard. The legal truth is that the freelance royal model, the idea that you can trade on the crown's prestige while operating as an independent influencer, has been officially dismantled. The industry has chosen structure over spectacle. By mid-December, the Sussex brand had been relegated to the PR-sensitive lists, a graveyard for celebrities who bring too much drama and too little grace. As the world watched Catherine walk hand-in-hand with her children at Sandringham, no logos, no staging, just duty, the lesson was final. Grace doesn't need an endorsement. It is its own authority. The most devastating blow to the Sussex
pair reached
empire
a formal agreement. Diana walked away from negotiations with a considerable settlement, $22.5 million in cash and $600,000 yearly payments, and her title as Princess of Wales. One of the biggest kicks, however, came to her royal status. The outlet noted that it was Charles who demanded Diana be stripped of the Royal Highness title, a moniker that set her apart as a royal. Queen Elizabeth II was said to have supported Diana keeping the designation, but Charles insisted she give it up. Once stripped of her HRH status, Diana was expected to curtsy to other royals, including her sons. However, the royal family made it clear that Diana would always be, quote, regarded as a member of the royal family, and from time to time receive invitations to state and national public.
Was rescinded after the board of directors cited legacy alignment risk. The reason? A direct backlash from former aides of Princess Diana, who stated publicly that Diana's name was never meant for commercial manipulation. This wasn't just a lost contract. It was a signal that the Diana card, Meghan's most potent psychological tool, had finally lost its value. When you overplay a tragedy to sell a product, you don't just lose the audience. You lose the hallowed ground that makes the tragedy meaningful. Simultaneously, a New York-based luxury PR firm reportedly declined to renew its contract with the Sussex team. Their internal review cited a measurable decline in long-term brand equity. This is the cold, hard reality of the sentiment gap. While Catherine, the Princess of Wales, saw her favorability in the United States surge to 59%, Meghan's influence suffered a historic decline. The American audience, once sympathetic to the disruptor narrative, has shifted toward a preference for authenticity shaped by humility. As one Gen Z influencer succinctly put it in a viral clip, Catherine's aesthetic feels like intention. Meghan's feels like an audition. This is the physiognomy of the hustle. In our analysis of the characters involved, we see a stark difference in visual trust. Catherine, by doing nothing and saying less, allows the 1,000-year-old institution to speak through her. Her image walking at Sandringham in a recycled coat projects security. Meghan's image, the structured ivory coats, the midnight drives through Paris, projects maximum effort. In the world of high-net-worth branding, if you look like you are trying to be royal, you have already lost the status. The Crown's legal ban acted as the economic kill switch. By codifying the Windsor representation principles, the palace made it impossible for U.S. brands to claim a royal association without risking a legal dispute with the British state. No board of directors in America is willing to bet their company's future on a freelance royal who has been officially disavowed by the sovereign. The Sussex brand didn't just hit a PR wall, it hit a financial ceiling that is now rapidly lowering. As the dust settles, the legal truth remains. You can't market a legacy you refuse to honor. What we are witnessing now is not a temporary PR crisis. It is a symbolic exile. In the digital age, the Crown doesn't need to banish someone to a remote island. They simply remove them from the institutional narrative. By mid-December 2025, the legal truth of the King's decree has created a reality where Meghan Markle exists in a vacuum. She has the fame, She has the followers, but she has lost the context that made her relevant to the world of high-stakes power. The Diana blueprint, the idea that one could play the role of the tragic, persecuted royal to gain global leverage, has been officially decommissioned by the very institution that Diana once called home. The strategy of the palace, led by the quiet persistence of the Princess of Wales, was to let the Sussex brand collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. While Meghan was attempting to rewrite, reimagine, and reclaim a legacy that wasn't hers to trade, Catherine was busy performing the silent reset of the monarchy. She proved that in a world of 24-hour noise, the most powerful thing you can be is reliable. Brands like Dior and Chanel didn't just choose Catherine because of her title. They chose her because she represents a safe haven for their own heritage. In the hierarchy of luxury, stability is the ultimate luxury, and Meghan's manufactured chaos has become the industry's greatest deterrent. This is the death of the disruptor narrative. For 5 years, the Sussexes marketed themselves as the modernizers of a stale institution. But the legal truth revealed a different story. The monarchy didn't need modernizing via influencer tactics. It needed fortifying. By authorizing the Windsor representation principles, King Charles III didn't just protect the crown. He redefined modernity as institutional integrity. He signaled that the future of the monarchy belongs to those who serve the chain, not those who try to be the center. Meghan, by trying to be the center, effectively removed herself from the chain. The global shift in perception is now permanent. Industry reports from Asia to Europe show a measurable fatigue regarding the Sussex narrative. Consumers are no longer buying the victimhood as a brand model. They are looking for icons who embody resilience through duty. Catherine's approval ratings, which surged as she remained silent and focused on her recovery and service, are the data-driven proof that the public has chosen the legacy over the spectacle. Meghan Markle's attempt to monetize Diana's name was the final gamble that failed because it underestimated the public's ability to distinguish between meaning and marketing. As we move toward the final chapter of this saga, the industry has sent its final bill. The Sussex title is no longer a golden ticket to the boardrooms of LVMH or the front rows of Paris Fashion Week. It is a liability that requires heightened review and legal scrutiny. The crown has locked the vault, the industry has closed the doors, and the world has moved on to a new era of royal grace, one that is earned through silence, not demanded through headlines. The legal truth is simple. You cannot lead an institution you are trying to sell. As the final hours of 2025 tick away, the dust has settled on a battlefield that many didn't even realize was being fought. But for those who understand the mechanics of power, the result is as clear as a royal decree. The legal truth behind the Crown's ban on Meghan Markle is not an act of malice. It is an act of institutional
survival. The pair reached a formal agreement. Diana walked away from negotiations with a considerable settlement, $22.5 million in cash and $600,000 yearly payments, and her title as Princess of Wales. One of the biggest kicks, however, came to her royal status. The outlet noted that it was Charles who demanded Diana be stripped of the Royal Highness title, a moniker that set her apart as a royal. Queen Elizabeth II was said to have supported Diana keeping the designation, but Charles insisted she give it up. Once stripped of her HRH status, Diana was expected to curtsy to other royals, including her sons. However, the royal family made it clear that Diana would always be, quote, regarded as a member of the royal family, and from time to time receive invitations to state and national public
place. She didn't need a Dior contract because she is the standard that Dior seeks to align with. She understood that a queen doesn't audition for relevance. She defines it through her presence. The contrast at the end of the year was surgical. In California, a brand is struggling to find its context, facing a brand sunset as its most potent tools are neutralized by legal firewalls. In Sandringham, a monarchy is fortifying its future, anchored by a woman whose steel beneath silk has become the institution's greatest asset. Catherine's message to the world was simple, yet profound. Legacy is not something you claim. It is what remains when you no longer need to speak. The industry has listened. The luxury houses have pivoted, and the public has chosen. The Sussex model of freelance royalty has hit a wall of institutional integrity that no amount of Hollywood spin can penetrate. As we look toward the future,
do you think
the legal
Mrs.
truth
Parker Bowles
remains.
was a factor
You cannot
in
lead
the
an
breakdown of your
institution you are
marriage?
trying to sell.
Well, there were three
and
of
you
us
cannot wear a
in this
crown you
marriage,
refuse to
so it
honor.
was a bit crowded.
The crown has won, not through noise, but through the quiet, relentless power of grace. In the end, Dior didn't just block a celebrity, they chose a future. They chose the link in the chain over the center of the spectacle. And as the world watches Catherine step into her role as the avatar of modern royalty, we realize that the real winner of this battle was never in doubt. Because in the game of crowns and couture, structure always wins over spectacle. And grace is the only thing that never goes out of style.